The General Hospital, GH recap for Tuesday, March 3, reveals that Jason Morgan, Steve Burton, took measures, but Marco Rios, Adrian Anchondo, had to think quickly. Carly Spencer, Laura Wright, also made a significant discovery at Windermere, so here's how Tuesday's drama played out. Near the park, Harrison Chase, Josh Swickard, and Brooke Lynn Quartermaine, Amanda Seton, raced to help an unconscious woman named Delilah, Lily Cardone, who was 7 months pregnant. Delilah regained consciousness and was adamant about not getting the cops involved. Delilah said she passed out due to low blood sugar, but there was certainly more to the story. Delilah eventually felt a strong ache, so Chase and Brooke Lynn took her to the car so they could drive her to the hospital. Jordan Ashford, Tanisha Harper, suspected she was pregnant on GH and discussed the possibilities with Britt Westbourne, Kelly Thibault. Britt was called away before they could go too further into the conversation, so Jordan took an at-home pregnancy test thereafter. At Windermere, Marco attempted to remove one of Britt's medication bottles from the study safe. Sidwell noticed Marco and wondered what he was doing, so he pretended to be preparing Britt's next dose. Sidwell said it was Pascal's, Mark forget, turn, implying that they shouldn't coddle Britt by allowing her to choose who would administer her medication. When Carly arrived at Jen Sidwell's, Carlo Rota, request, he wanted to meet with her alone. Marco was perplexed and later told Lucas Jones, Van Hansis, about the meeting, as well as his unsuccessful attempt to get Britt's prescription. Back in Windermere, Sidwell proposed a dinner party to bring Lucas and Marco's families together. Carly didn't think that was a smart idea because she was dating Jack Brennan, Chris McKenna, a member of the WSB. Sidwell pretended that his problems with the WSB had occurred mostly on other continents and pushed Carly to bring Brennan with her. Before Sidwell and Carly could finalize their arrangements, he left the room to take a phone call. Carly went snooping and seemed overjoyed when she discovered the neighboring safe behind a picture. Delilah had Brooke Lynn accompany her to the emergency department, where Britt did an ultrasound and discovered abdominal bleeding. Delilah's wrist formerly had an odd tattoo on it. Delilah lost consciousness again when her monitors went haywire. Brooke Lynn was tossed out and rejoined Chase, but Britt insisted on an emergency C-section. Curtis Ashford, Donnell Turner, then expressed his desire for Portia Robinson, Brooke Kerr, to own the house and raise their child there. An emotional Portia expressed her gratitude and finally called Isaiah Gannon, saw Andy Wilson, expecting to see him. Curtis made his way to Jordan's house, where she had a barely concealed pregnancy test hidden nearby. Curtis informed Jordan of his intention to let Portia keep the house and stated that he would hunt for another place to reside. Jordan surprised Curtis by suggesting that he move in there. Danny Morgan, Asher Antonazan, got in problems at the Quartermaine mansion for leaving the gatehouse in disarray and skipping school on several occasions. Tracy Quartermaine, Jane Elliott, and Alexis Davis, Nancy Lee Grahn, chastised Danny, along with Jason Morgan, Steve Burton, who forced him to clean up the gatehouse to Tracy's standards and prohibited him from returning for 2 months. Danny needed to check with Jason to see if there were any emergencies that would justify skipping school. After Danny left, Jason informed Tracy and Alexis that he was updating his will, which he hadn't done since Sam McCall, Kelly Monaco, died. Jason needed to select a guardian for Danny in case something happened to him, so Tracy and Alexis both made their case for why Jason should choose them. Tracy wanted Jason to be honest with her about the danger he was in that precipitated this, but he acted dumb. When Charlotte secretly met Danny, she told him their first kiss was beautiful, but she believed it should be their last. Charlotte admitted that things were tough due to Rocco Falconeri, Finn Carr, but she also stated that if Valentine Cassadine, James Patrick Stewart, was forced to go, she would accompany him. Danny did not like the sound of that and did not want to pretend the kiss had not occurred. Charlotte realized she didn't want to fake anymore and kissed Danny again before deciding she needed to go home. Danny hoped Charlotte would let him know if she had to run with Valentine, so she agreed to try. At Charlie's pub, Sonny Corinthos, Maurice Bernard, and Ada Justine Turner, Nazneen contractor, admitted that they each had an objective at the start, but things changed along the way. Sonny wanted to kiss Justine again, but she sensed they both knew it would be a tremendous mistake. If they pursued a romantic relationship, Justine's job could suffer. Sonny's life may also be jeopardized if his enemies suspected he was passing information to someone in Justine's position. Justine believed that walking away was the wisest option, but Sunny persuaded her to spend a hot night with him first. As Tuesday's GH episode came to a finish, Sunny and Justine shared another passionate moment. According to General Hospital spoilers, Justine and Sunny may be unable to part ways, so stay tuned. The events of that Tuesday in Port Charles unfolded with the subtle intensity that General Hospital has always excelled at, piling personal stakes against the backdrop of persistent risks and family relationships that refuse to be neatly addressed. Jason Morgan, ever the stoic guardian, found himself confronted with the fragility of his own existence in a way that felt both natural and extremely disconcerting. He had gathered Tracy Quartermaine and Alexis Davis at the Quartermaine estate, the great chambers resonating with the weight of what he was going to say. It wasn't simply another chat about logistics or family squabbles. Jason was rewriting his will for the first time since Sam's death, a sharp reminder that the life he was living, full of risks, shadows, and enemies, could end at any time. Danny had been the initial catalyst earlier in the day. Tracy and Alexis intervened after the youngster, rebellious as only a Morgan could be, skipped school and left the gatehouse in chaos. They stood together in their displeasure, lecturing him on responsibility, while Jason observed with measured calm. He ordered Danny off to clean up properly and enforced a 2-month ban from remaining at the gatehouse, a harsh penalty with a caring message. When Danny left, perhaps to meet a friend or simply to avoid the attention, Jason went to the 2 women who had become unexpected pillars in his life. He explained how he needed to appoint a guardian for Danny in case something happened to him. The words weighed heavily in the air, transforming unsaid anxieties into real necessities. Tracy, with her keen tongue and unwavering devotion to the Quartermaine legacy, wasted no time stating her case. She said that Danny was Monica's grandson, and that the mansion was his proper home, full of family history and stability. Living among the Quartermaines would ground him and provide him with roots in ways that wandering around Jason's uncertain world could not. She spoke of tradition, the mansion's enduring power, and how Monica would have wanted Danny to be safe within its walls. Alexis, no less ferocious, responded with her own viewpoint. She already had Scout, Danny's sister, in her care, and Sam's final wishes had emphasized keeping the siblings together. Separating them would sever what little remained of their original family unit. She advocated vehemently for continuity, emphasizing emotional links above monetary heritage, saying that Danny needed someone who understood the intricacies of his mother's absence and his father's risky job. Both women agreed on one point: Carly should not be the pick. Their explanations overlapped in places: Carly's tumultuous existence, her entanglements with Sunny, the never-ending turmoil that seemed to surround her, but they delivered the decision with surprising uniformity. Jason listened, taking in their points without making an immediate decision. He thanked them for their candor and promised to make a decision shortly, but the chat left an uneasy feeling. Tracy asked him directly, what trouble was he expecting that required this upgrade so quickly? Jason evaded, as he often did, and walked away before the question got any deeper. However, the conversation remained, a silent acknowledgement that Jason's environment was altering, possibly to greater hazard than normal. The guardianship decision was more than simply papers. It was Jason confronting death, assuring Danny's future while his own was unclear. Across town, in Windermere, the atmosphere was fraught with secrecy and mistrust. Marco Rios went purposefully through the sumptuous halls, his mind set on one goal. Britt Westbourne's prescription had become a focal point in a wider, riskier plan, one linked to Lucas, secret objectives, and possibly revenge against people like Sunny. Marco reached the study, where a safe hidden behind a picture contained the vials he needed. He worked quickly and deftly, attempting to retrieve one dose without drawing notice. But Jen Sidwell emerged unexpectedly, domineering and suspicious. What did Marco do? The question sliced through the silence like a razor. Marco thought quickly, coming up with a believable excuse. He was preparing Britt's next dose, stepping in despite the fact that it was Pascal the butler's time, because Britt detested him. Sidwell narrowed his eyes, unconvinced but not accusatory. He asserted that Britt did not call the shots in his house, secured the prescription, and disregarded Marco's attempt as overstepping. The moment has passed, yet the anxiety remains. Marco had almost succeeded, but the close call frightened him. Later, at the hospital, He told Lucas how close he'd been to obtaining the syringe and how Sidwell had intervened. He downplayed the risk, arguing that his cover was intact and that Sidwell was unaware of their plan, but he did notice something odd: Carly's entrance for a private meeting with Sidwell. Why her? What did Sidwell desire from Carly Spencer? Carly had walked into Windermere that afternoon at Sidwell's invitation, unaware of the underlying tensions behind Marco's activities. Sidwell greeted her politely, suggesting a dinner gathering to celebrate or possibly manipulate Marco and Lucas' love. He asked for her assistance with planning, an apparently benign request that allowed him permission to go away for a phone conversation. Left alone in the study, Carly's instincts kicked in. She had her own goal, possibly related to Valentine or broader worries about Sidwell's tactics. She continued to investigate, tracing walls and frames until she came across the concealed safe behind one of the paintings. It was a jackpot, a hidden compartment containing secrets, records, or proof that could tip the balance of power in Port Charles. Her discovery seemed electric, like a breakthrough in whatever hidden inquiry she was conducting. Carly didn't have time to open it right then, but the discovery promised answers, leverage, or peril. Sidwell returned before she could investigate further, but the seed had been planted. Carly's inventiveness, her willingness to bend the rules for what she thought was right, had paid off in a practical sense. However, it cemented her relationship with Sidwell, a man whose attractiveness concealed vicious ambition. The safe was more than just a physical object, it represented Windermere's hidden layers of duplicity, where alliances changed and reasons remained ambiguous. These threads, Jason's protective foresight for Danny, Marco's unsuccessful attempt and growing frustration, and Carly's brave discovery, were intertwined throughout the day, each with consequences for the coming weeks. Jason's guardianship decision would have far-reaching consequences for the Courtemain and Davis families, requiring them to make decisions regarding loyalty, legacy, and love. Marco's mishap with the prescription vial hinted at rising tension, maybe pitting him against his father or hurting his relationship with Lucas. Carly's discovery in the safe could reveal secrets about Sidwell's empire, drawing her deeper into danger but also providing opportunity to safeguard others she cared about. In Port Charles, incidents like these were rarely isolated. They built on months of tension: Jason's return from the shadows, Danny's adolescence marked by loss and rebellion, the long-term ramifications of Sam's disappearance, the Cassadine-Sidwell machinations, and Carly's ongoing role as both savior and agitator. The day felt like a watershed moment for the characters, when they had to decide what they were willing to risk to keep going. Jason's modest determination to safeguard Danny's future exemplified a father's undying love while also revealing his understanding of impending risks. Marco's fast thinking under pressure revealed a young man torn between familial devotion and personal vendettas. Carly's opportunistic digging exemplified her determination to remain silent when solutions were readily available. As nightfall fell over the town, the effects remained unspoken but tangible. Danny, perhaps oblivious of the seriousness of his father's deeds, pursued his own path. Lucas was concerned about Marco's safety and their shared secrets. Sidwell planned his next move, confident in his authority. Tracy and Alexis believed that their advice would persuade Jason to take the best possible course of action. And Carly, armed with fresh knowledge, considered how to apply it without starting a larger fire. The hospital was buzzing with its own dramas, emergency procedures, shifting relationships, and the incessant hum of life and death, but the personal stakes at the Courtemain home and Windermere were different. They reminded viewers why General Hospital had survived. Beneath the medical crises and mafia intrigue lay the raw human elements of family, guardianship, trust, and the desperate means people take to protect what is most important. Jason's guardianship issue was not settled that day, nor was Marco's plan put back on track, and Carly's finding raised more concerns than it answered. However, those unsolved tensions hold the potential of future stories, confrontations, and moments when love and danger intersect in the small community by the ocean. The story threads tightened, drawing characters to inevitable conclusions. Jason would have to make a decision, knowing that no one would be satisfied. Marco would regroup, possibly finding another way to achieve his objectives or dealing with the implications of his father's suspicions. Carly might return to Windermere or confide in someone like Jason or Sonny, putting her discovery into action. In Port Charles, safety was always fleeting, and the events of that Tuesday demonstrated how delicate the balance was, how one missing dose, one concealed safe, and one thoughtful plan for the future might change everything. Tuesday's episode began with tension simmering across Port Charles, as secrets moved closer to being revealed and numerous lives were on the verge of permanently changing. Jason found himself in unknown emotional ground while in the hospital. He was known for his unwavering composure, yet he was visibly shaken as he met with Diane to finalize documents for Danny's future. The weight of recent events had driven Jason to confront options he had previously refused to contemplate. With risks looming closer to home, he had made the difficult choice to appoint Danny's legal guardian in case something happened to him. Diane conducted the conversation with her usual brisk professionalism, but she couldn't deny the underlying emotion. Jason's decision was not made lightly. Every name he considered had issues. He wanted someone strong enough to defend Danny, someone who understood the deadly environment that frequently surrounded Jason's life, and someone Danny could trust absolutely. The paperwork lay between them, a silent acknowledgement of Jason's reality. Danger was never far away. Jason hardly hesitated for a second before signing the documents. He was concerned about the idea of Danny feeling abandoned or vulnerable, rather than his own anxiety. Diane told him that this phase was not surrender, but rather preparation. But the gleam in Jason's eyes indicated that he saw it differently. He was braced for hit. Across town, Marco was in trouble. What started as a normal shift quickly turned into a potentially career-ending error. Inconsistencies in the medication log aroused suspicion. A vital and precisely regulated dosage did not correspond to the amount administered. When a routine check revealed the disparity, Marco's name came up swiftly. Elizabeth was one of the first to point out the irregularity. Her previous experience had shown her that pharmaceutical errors may be caused by simple oversight, but this issue seemed more nuanced. The timing was too exact, and the dose was not readily miscalculated. When Marco was approached, his early confidence wavered. He insisted he had followed rules, but his defensive demeanor heightened the fear. Portia joined the discourse, wanting to maintain order and prioritize patient safety. She gently but strongly urged Marco to go through his procedure step by step. As he recounted his actions, minor flaws formed in his account. A distraction. An unexpected interruption. A patient's request. Each explanation seemed credible, but together they presented a wobbly picture. Word of the suspected pharmaceutical blunder spread quickly across the hospital halls. Even the allegation of negligence can forever harm a medical professional's credibility. Marco suddenly realized that he wasn't only trying to prove his innocence, he was fighting to save his job. Meanwhile, Carly was navigating her own mystery. A discovery made during what should have been a regular document check resulted in an unexpected revelation, a safe she had no idea existed. Its placement was modest but deliberate, implying that it housed something valuable, or hazardous. Carly's instincts were immediately heightened. Secrets seldom remained buried in Port Charles, and the presence of an unreported safe could only indicate hidden information. Her mind raced with options. Financial documents. Evidence. Protection. Given the commotion surrounding her, the timing of the finding seemed almost too fortuitous. After securing her privacy, Carly examined the safe more closely. It wasn't easy to open, and the lack of rapid access further fueled her interest. Whoever installed it clearly wanted to keep the contents safe. But Carly was not one to back away from a locked door, literal or metaphorical. As she attempted to find a way inside, her thoughts turned to Jason. There had always been layers to his life that she couldn't entirely understand. Was this tied to him? To whom? Sunny? Or to something altogether different? The uncertainty gnawed at her. Back at the hospital, Marco came under further scrutiny. An internal review was undertaken, necessitating his temporary departure from patient care. The decision, while procedural, struck him as a verdict. Colleagues exchanged apprehensive looks as he exited his station. In an environment based on trust and precision, uncertainty spread swiftly. Elizabeth attempted to provide moderate reassurance. She was well aware of the brutality of hospital gossip, and Marco deserved to be treated fairly until the facts were established. Even she couldn't overlook the seriousness of a drug error. Patient's life depended on precise dosing. There was no acceptable intermediate ground. Marco revealed in a private conversation that he felt targeted. He suggested that someone might have changed the log after his shift or purposefully misrepresented his efforts. The claim added a fresh level of curiosity. If true, it was more than just neglect, it was sabotage. But without proof, it seemed desperate. Danny sensed that something was wrong with his father. Children frequently perceive small emotional shifts that adults feel are hidden. When Danny asked Jason directly if everything was fine, Jason responded with a steady but imprecise reassurance. He talked about responsibility and planning forward, portraying the guardianship decision as sensible preparedness rather than a fear-driven obligation. Danny's response was quite mature. He didn't press for details, but he made it apparent that he believed his father. The encounter left Jason feeling both strengthened and shaken. Protecting Danny required difficult decisions, including recognizing his own vulnerability. Carly eventually received assistance in accessing the safe. The clack of the mechanism's release rang more than expected in the quiet chamber. Inside, she discovered well-organized documents, a flash drive, and a little amount of cash. It was not frantic or hasty, it was intentional. The records appeared to allude to accounts and transactions that she did not instantly identify. Certain names stood out, some recognizable, others unfamiliar. The flash drive felt especially momentous, implying that digital information were too sensitive to be stored solely on paper. Carly's mind moved to strategic mode. Information was power, and whatever the safe held had been carefully guarded for a reason. Whether this discovery would protect her or hurt her remained unknown. Tensions reached a high during the hospital review conference. Portia underlined that the goal was to gather facts rather than make accusations. Nonetheless, when the dosage chart was projected for everyone to see, the stark difference was obvious. Marco asserted that he followed the proper measurement protocol. He described double-checking the vial, validating the patient's paperwork, and documenting the administration in real time. Another nurse pointed out that the electronic timestamp on the log did not quite match Marco's account of events. The improvement was minor, minutes instead of hours, but minutes are important in medical settings. This revelation both damaged and reinforced Marco's defense. If someone entered the system after him, the timestamp may show the interference. The IT department was approached to examine potential unauthorized access. As the doubt grew, Elizabeth quietly encouraged Marco to evaluate whether he had overlooked anything at all. Pride may be blinding, she warned. Marco claimed that, while not flawless, he was not careless. The distinction was really important to him. After making his guardianship decision, Jason sought out Carly. Their bond, formed over years of shared conflicts and undying dedication, enabled them to converse without complete explanations. Carly closely examined his expression and detected the shift. When she mentioned the safe, Jason's reaction was slight but telling. He offered measured questions, clearly considering the implications. Carly recounted what she had discovered, looking for any indication that he was already aware of its contents. His constraint suggested familiarity, though he did not explicitly affirm it. The discussion shifted to danger, how much they were willing to bear and what boundaries they were willing to violate to protect their family. Jason's guardianship choice and Carly's discovery of hidden riches both revealed the same underlying truth. Uncertainty loomed large in their lives. Later, alone, Carly studied the flash drive on a protected laptop. Encrypted files flooded the screen, each identified in coded jargon. It would take some time to figure out, but even without immediate answers, she knew one thing for certain. This wasn't just careless record-keeping. It was contingency planning. Back at the hospital, IT detected strange login activity from a shared computer around the time of medicine entry. The account used belonged to Marco, however the login location did not correspond to where he claimed to be charting. This detail raised the likelihood of sabotage. Marco's face flushed with relief, but it was tempered by a new anxiety. Why would someone frame him? Professional jealousy? Personal grievances? Or something more strategic, related to hospital politics? The questions multiplied. Portia urged against jumping to conclusions. Marco would remain on administrative leave while the investigation was ongoing. Despite the frustration, the tiny shift away from direct blame gave him hope. As dusk fell, Jason stood alone for a time, pondering the day's decisions. Naming a guardian obliged him to admit that his life was inherently dangerous. It did, however, confirm his determination to protecting people he loved at any costs. Carly, meantime, carefully returned the contents of the safe before locking it again. She recognized that having secret information came with responsibilities. What she decides to do next might shift alliances and spark conflict. The episode concluded with parallel images, Marco staring at his phone, awaiting further updates that could determine his professional fate, Jason watching Danny from a distance, silently vowing that the paperwork he signed would never be used, and Carly seated in dim light, the flash drive resting in her palm like a key to an uncertain future. In Port Charles, betrayal and protection frequently coexisted. Tuesday's events made one thing clear: measures were being implemented based on experience rather than paranoia. And, whether through legal guardianship, guarded medication diaries, or hidden safes, everyone was prepared for fights that had yet to be revealed.